Welcome to the Shared Path. I'm Maggie Linton. Kelly Yang is an award winning New York Times bestselling author. Plus, her personal story is also very fascinating. An immigrant at 6 years old, attending college at 13, and Harvard Law School at 17. Whoa. Kelly joins us today to talk about her latest novel in the Front Desk series. It's called Top Story. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, listen, it's wonderful to get a chance to talk to you and to meet you. Let's begin with your life because, as I said, you came into this country as an immigrant and family looking forward to doing more and being more. Let's start there with that.
Yeah, I was only 6 years old when my parents announced that we were moving to a whole different country. I only realized when we landed that they spoke English here, and I didn't know any English. And I remember that first year in school, it was so hard for me. I had no idea what the teacher was saying. I didn't have any friends. I couldn't make any friends. I think I was pretty much silent for an entire year. So that was kind of the first year in America. And I remember sitting there just kind of thinking, like, what is my future in this country? Like, what am I even going to have a role here? Because this is just so hard. And I remember telling myself, all right, I have to say something by the end of this first year. I cannot leave first grade just having said nothing. And I didn't have much time left because it was already kind of like the last week of school. And I remember counting down and my heart was like pounding, just kind of going, okay, I have 3 days left. All right, now I have 2 days left. Oh my God, now I have like one day and I'm running out of time. And even though it was like such a small thing to just raise my hand and maybe ask to go to the bathroom or something, I just couldn't do it. And finally, we got to the last hour of the last day of school. And I remember finally raising my hand like a tiny, tiny inch. And my entire class was just like, what is going on? And my teacher called on me. And I don't remember what I said. I mean, I could have literally asked to go to the bathroom. It was probably nothing, but it was a monumental move. It was huge. In my mind, it was like going to the moon. And I said something, and my entire class cheered for me, and my teacher cheered for me. And that was it. That was the first step of a long, long, long time of not shutting up ever since.
With lots of stories to tell. uh, but, your emphasis on your heritage has made it so important because I'm a reader, I always have been, and I can remember growing up and my parents making sure that Black literature was part of our home. Of course, back then we were called coloreds, but you know, we had to have that literature. It had to be part of us, and that was an importance for you too, wasn't it? Let's see my literature.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because growing up, I didn't have that. I mean, I remember the only Asian American character I ever saw growing up was Claudia in the Babysitter's Club, which was so great, and I was so appreciative. I mean, I remember just even seeing one tiny little picture of her on the cover, and she wasn't the main character, but she was one of the rotating cast. But she wasn't written by an Asian American person. You know, you flip to the back of the book and the author is Anne M. Martin, who I adore and I idolize, but she did not look like me. And just that alone, just like, okay, first of all, is it okay to even tell our stories? Do they deserve to be told? And also, who gets to tell them? This was something that I was always thinking about as a kid, not knowing whether our stories were worthy of this space and whether we were worthy of being the ones to actually tell them.
Well,
So it's really
obviously,
important.
go ahead.
Yeah. No, so it's really important to me that we finally have books like the Front Desk series to tell kids, growing up in this generation, that your stories matter, your experiences matter. And yeah, they might be a little different from all your classmates. Like I was running a motel. I'm sure my classmates thought that was really strange. They actually didn't know about it because that's how scared I was of telling someone. That comes from years of never seeing yourself represented, is you really are worried about sharing parts of your life. So I never really told them, but I want kids growing up now to not be ashamed and to be really proud in telling stories about who they are.
Let's move forward because at 13, you went to UC Berkeley. This is not an age when most kids are entering college, and then on to Harvard Law School at 17. Talk about that ascendance because that's pretty dramatic from not talking at 6 years old.
Yeah, I think again, like I just never really stopped talking after that first sentence. I became a reader, and really it was from going to the public library. Every day I would go to the library. I discovered that you could check out whatever you wanted. It was totally free. They didn't judge me. I was a very poor kid. I had these like ridiculous pants from the Goodwill, but the librarians were kind. They didn't see me as a girl from a motel. They saw me as a girl who wanted to read, and that was it. Anybody could come. And I devoured those books, and I think I became really good as a student from reading. Really, I think reading is probably the one of the most important things you can do for yourself. If you want to advance in your life, like just go to the library and read. And I had the opportunity to go to college at a young age. I don't recommend anyone else taking that opportunity because in hindsight, I think it was a really big mistake. I think not a mistake, but just something that had a lot of high costs that I did not see at the time. And the costs were that you're always on a track that is different from everybody else your age. So academically, you might think that you're ready, and you might be ready academically, but emotionally, you're still a kid. You're still a
Maturity.
30,
Hmm.
yeah, who just wants to go to the mall and have some ice cream. You're not ready to rush for sororities, you know? But that's the kind of weird situation that I found myself in. And again, feeling like that fish out of water, feeling really different and having this part of me that I had to hide from everybody else. So it was a hard experience. I learned a lot. I do not recommend it for people. But I got a lot out of it as well. I am stronger because of it. It taught me to have a lot of grit and to have a lot of resilience and to be able to speak up and find my voice at a young age, because it is not easy to stand out in these giant college lecture halls when you're 13, and you had no choice but to use your voice.
And then on to Harvard Law School. That you had to pick one of the tops, didn't you?
Actually, it's funny. I was cleaning out my parents' garage the other day. They're moving. And I found all this. I found like my original acceptance letter from Harvard. And I found all these things that I had. It was really amazing that they kept all of it. I don't regret having a law background because I think it is a really great background to have. It teaches you to be a critical thinker. It makes you not never scared to look at a contract, which I think a lot of people are scared to look at a contract. So that's always really helpful. But I was certainly not ready to be a lawyer coming out of law school at the age of 20.
You always had that passion for wanting to write, though, starting your own newspaper at 15. And because again, the voice of your people that were part of your community was not being covered by the LA Times or any other newspaper. Talk about that
Yeah,
resolve
exactly.
there too. Yeah.
Exactly. And I always wanted to write the stories of the people, the little people, the mom and dad starting these tiny little restaurants that were so delicious, the food, the businesses that my people were starting, and our hardships. And so when I had the opportunity to go to Chinatown, Chinatown in San Francisco, where Top Story is set, has been going through some hard times. It's also made up of this close-knit community of people, aunties and uncles that always help each other out, and the little kids who are growing up there. But during COVID, this community really took a hit. It was very hard times. People stopped going into Chinatown. I think there was a lot of racism, and this community really needed some help. And I thought, well, what can I do? Like, what can I do to make people understand how fun it is to go to Chinatown and to run around on the alleys and go into fortune cookie factories and watch the fortune cookies get made? All these amazing things that you can pretty much only do in Chinatown. And not to mention the food. Oh my God, the food
Oh yeah.
alone is
I've
like
I've
worth
been to Chinatown
it.
And the one thing I remember more
Yeah,
than anything is going up hills, those hills which feel like mountains to many people. And almost
I
any shop
know.
you went into had the best food in the world, the best dim sum, the best kimchi, the best,
Mhm.
you name it, it was there. It was so good.
And it was cheap. It was
Yes.
affordable, and you
Yes.
go to Chinatown now and you can get a good lunch for under like $15, which
Yes,
you
you can.
cannot do in a lot of other places.
Yes, yes, yes. All right. You've held up the book a couple of times. You can hold it up a few more times. Let's talk about Top Story. This sounds a little bit like it might have been somewhat of a memoir for you, too, huh?
Well, I love San Francisco. I have lived there for many years. I went to school in Berkeley. We would go back. I would go to San Francisco during the summers, even when I lived in Hong Kong. So San Francisco has a really special place in my heart. And also, it has a lot of history. It has not only a lot of Asian American history, but also has a lot of indigenous history. And that's something that I wanted to weave into the story. I wanted to make sure people understood, the first people of San Francisco, their struggles for federal recognition. All these are stories that Mia is uncovering as she's trying to become a journalist. And trying to figure out, how do you piece this together? How do you piece this complicated history together to make a cohesive story that still feels very empowering? And I think that is something that we as a nation are always grappling with. We have this complex, fraught history. It's full of all kinds of things that we've done that are hard on a lot of people. But how do we give the next generation something to feel hopeful about? And I think that the key is that to tell the next generation, hey, here's the truth, here's what happened, but you can make it better. We can learn from the mistakes of the past and we can take a better step in the future, to make sure we have this bright future that is inclusive for everyone.
Uh, Talk especially about Mia, Lupe, Jason. You're in a sense your lead characters. Of course, the mom and dad are there too, but talk about them because they're so special, and their love of friendship and as it grows and continues to give to each other.
Yeah. So while Mia is running around chasing the story and trying to fight for her right to be at the table with all these big wigs in her journalism camp, her best friend Lupe is finding an opportunity to skip to college. She's in Berkeley. She's attending her own math thing. It's a very impressive math competition that she's in. But she's kind of feeling like, maybe I should just go to college. Some things have happened in my high school that I didn't really like. Maybe I should just skip ahead. And so she's grappling with very much the same kind of torment that I was at the time, which is thinking about, where do I fit in? Like, where's the best place for me? But also Jason, it's been so wonderful and amazing to see Jason and Mia's friendship evolved. Of course, in the first book, Jason is the motel owner's son, right? The horrible Mr. Yao, who we all love to hate in the first book. He really tortured Mia and her parents. He was a
Yes.
horrible, horrible employer. And this is his son. And so for the most part of the first book, Mia hates Jason. But now we're in book 5 and their friendship has really evolved. Jason has changed a lot. He really is like the ultimate character study. If you want to do like a character study on character development, he's really developed a lot. And it's been really wonderful to finally get them to this place in the 5th book, Top Story, where, Mia has maybe feelings for him.
And it's so much that age group of I really like somebody, but should I tell him? What do I do?
Yeah.
He seems to like somebody else too. We got to, Emma. And so what do we do? How do I do it? And I think that one of the things that you bring out in your book is the trust that people are, no matter what age you are, put in others to tell their dreams, to keep their secrets, to have a person to talk to. Can't do that with your cell phone, but you can with the right person.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's interesting that you bring up cell phone, because this series is set in the 90s when they didn't really have cell phones back then. It's been so refreshing to write it too because of that. And I think that a lot of kids these days, they do escape into a gadget, and it's very hard and it's very isolating. And of course, the pandemic made it like 20 times worse. And suddenly this gadget is now your school and your hospital, like everything, your social life. And as a parent, watching kids disappear into phones, it's been heartbreaking. And actually, I just wrote a new book that's coming out in February called Finally Heard, which talks about social media and kids. It specifically tackles that. But yeah, exactly. Like having that friend, I think that's what we're all craving, that closeness to a human. And we somehow think that using a phone will get us there, but there's nothing that beats that heart to heart, real life, in person conversation with a best friend.
And working toward that and making it happen too is also part of weaving through the right people. Because you give some examples in here of maybe you're trusting somebody and their trust is not being returned to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have to be really careful who we trust, and, they have to earn our trust. And that's the thing, that's a lesson. And the kids go through that. They get their hearts broken. They have little struggles with friends. They get bullied at school. Things happen as they happen to all of us. But it's really learning to trust your inner voice and listen to your inner voice when you're not being heard, where you're not being respected, and realizing you deserve better.
We talk about the dog, comma. Where did you come up with that name?
Yes, yes. I love dogs in general.
I
I'm
do
definitely a
too.
dog person. And it's been so great to see Mia finally get her dream puppy. It's something that she's been wanting and wanting ever since book 4. So finally, she has an opportunity to adopt a puppy in Chinatown, who she names Kama, because, of course, she's a writer. And it's really funny to see how she tries to train Kama with Jason.
Jason is the one who stepped in and really helped her with that.
He did. You know what? And I wish he would help me with my dog, because I have this puppy, and she has been so hard to train. I mean, and it was funny. I was rereading Top Story yesterday in preparation for all of this. And Jason has a different philosophy on dog training than Mia. Mia's like, oh, let's just shower her with praises and communication and positivity. And Jason's like, tough love. We gotta go with the tough love. And I was rereading this and I was like, you know what? Jason might be right. Because my dog is not responding to the positive communication. So it's been really funny.
Yeah, I was going to say you need to look at a little bit more Cesar Millan and where he tells the owners you have to be in charge. So if your dog's running your house, you're doing it wrong, Ellie. Okay.
For sure. My dog, I showed a video of my dog to somebody the other day, and they were like, yeah, she's definitely running the show. It's so funny.
Rein her in now because she only continues to do more crazy stuff. Uh, let's talk about Hank because
Mm.
he becomes an important part of the story as someone who understands the youth as well as getting a little older.
Absolutely. Hank is so critical in the series. I mean, I think that there's so many things that he tells the kids that they just need to hear. And sometimes they just need to hear it from someone else other than their parents. And so he is sort of like the wise, cool uncle, who always has some wisdom to impart. And it's never preachy either. He always meets them at their level, and he really listens to them. And it's been just amazing seeing his story unfold. And I love that in Top Story we learn a lot more about Hank, and some of the things that he was going through with his family, why he was, in the motels to begin with, what he was doing in California before he started living in the motels, and just like how sometimes things happen in our life that are unexpected, and we're dealing with so much. But we don't always know it by looking at someone, what they're going through, and it really takes that conversation to fully understand.
No, I have to tell you, your chapter 78, which is the talk between Mia and Hank, is one of the best chapters in the whole book because it shows you that it's not just about being young, but being understanding of what time and love is all about.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, I think that that's where the bond comes from, is that they're both helping each other out, that they're still figuring out life. Like Hank doesn't have everything figured out. He's scared. He's going through things. He has trauma that he's carrying around. But he also has so much love and compassion and empathy. And he's always reminding the kids that, you want to wake up and look at the world with fresh eyes. You want to give life a chance. And I think that's a really important thing for them to give to each other. It works both ways. And it's beautiful. It's really, I mean, Hank is probably my favorite character to hang out with. If I could have dinner with anyone from the series, it would definitely be Hank.
Yeah, I haven't read any of your other books, but there was something special about him, and I would think it was like very much like what you said, but I call it wisdom and sharing the wisdom that every person needs. But the younger you start it, the better life you're going to have.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And you know what? That's the thing. It's like this is what family's all about, is passing that wisdom on. But sometimes you make your own family. Sometimes, your parents are working, they're busy. That's what it was like for me. My parents were always busy, always cleaning. I couldn't always get them to share their wisdom because they just weren't around. And so then you have to make up your own little new family. And mine included weeklies, the weeklies who lived there, the customers that we had. It also included books. Books were my friends, and I moved around a lot as a kid and didn't always wasn't always able to make friends in my new school that I was at. So I would go to the library and I would go and find all my friends on the shelves.
The thing you talk about just very briefly is grief and how you handle that. Because in a sense, there earlier you learn how to handle grief, the better you're going to be in the long run. And every
Mhm.
child pretty much goes through grief. They could be grieving about losing a toy, or like you were saying, you were constantly moving. And in a sense, that's a grief, but it's also an acceptance of what is.
Mhm. Yeah, and just knowing that it's okay to feel that loss, it's okay, and you can take your time, and there is no right way to grieve. But that we can talk about it. We don't have to be ashamed of feeling sad that we've lost a friend. Sometimes friendships outgrow each other, and that's really hard on a kid. It's really hard when your best friend suddenly wants to outgrow you. I've had that happen, and that's a grief all on its own. And of course there's real grief, which is something that Hank has been dealing with, and feeling sad and just missing a loved one that has gone. And how do you deal with that? I think talking, communication, taking these feelings that we've been repressing, all of us, and putting them more on the surface so that we know it's okay to have them. I think that's really ultimately what I want to tell kids. It's okay to have big feelings.
Yeah. The other thing, you talked about going through the museum, the Chinese Historical
Mhm.
Museum with Jason and Mia, and how important it is to know your history and
Mhm.
search
To know
and
your
find out.
history, absolutely. To know your history and to know your worth. I mean, I was so shocked to see they had this Bruce Lee exhibit, which was so empowering to see Bruce Lee in all the many ways he's opened doors for everyone. But then they had a pay stub of Bruce Lee, like a pay roster of how much money he made, and he made the least amount of money on this TV series of everyone, even though he was literally the star. And to see that, it was like, wow, it really hit me how much we undervalue our work, and we need to know our worth, really know what we're bringing to the table. And of course, it's a really hard message. It's really hard, and we feel guilty about it, even thinking that we deserve more. I mean, the writer strike alone right now, we're seeing writers finally wake up, and realize we do deserve to be paid well. But it's a constant battle, even internally, of just like, well, do I? Because I'm so grateful to be able to tell my stories. And we all know that there's no way writers will stop telling their stories. Like this is just the one thing we're here to do. So there's always this like constant battle between what I think I deserve and this gratitude for even being able to do it. And I think that's a really important thing to unpack and to start teaching kids at a young age. You do deserve everything. You deserve to be treated well. You deserve to be valued. You deserve to be paid well for your labor because you are bringing a lot to the table.
You've just taken what I was going to say. What else words would you like to leave with our listeners? But even more so, what's ahead for you? I know you said you have a book coming out in February, but and what's it on? What Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So it's called Finally Heard, and it's about this 10-year-old girl who gets a cell phone. She gets her own phone. She has convinced her mom that she needs it in order to make videos for her mom's business. Her mom is a, Asian American immigrant with a little bath bomb business that's not doing well because she's never on social media. And so Lena convinces her that she can change their whole life with this phone. And she starts doing it, and she's really good at it. And things are happening, but she's also descending deeper and deeper into social media and seeing all of the impact of social media on herself. And she starts to realize that, it's not just her that's putting things on, she's also kind of getting programmed and as a result, because social media is so powerful and it's so terrifying what it can do. It's like incredibly amazing in its capabilities in a positive way, but it's equally like amazing in its capabilities in a negative way. So I just wanted kids to realize all that, especially before they get a phone. This is something that we talk about in our family a lot, because I have 3 kids and one of them is always complaining that they don't have a phone. So there's always somebody who's complaining about it, or somebody's complaining that they're not on TikTok, or that I'm not giving them enough Wi-Fi or something. And I just got sick of it. I was like, all right, you want to talk about this? Well, let's do it. I'm going to write this book. I'm going to show you what you're missing, but I'm also going to show you what you're gaining by not being on it right now.
I lived without a cell phone for close to well over 50 years, so it's all good. However you explain it, and
Yeah, but
I
these kids these days, like you wouldn't believe it, they can't live without it for 5 minutes.
no, it's crazy. It's crazy. Well, listen, thank you very much. I send you many blessings for a great career straight ahead. And so many thanks to award winning New York Times bestselling author Kelly Yang. Her new novel, Top Story, is the latest for her Front Desk series. It's available through Scholastic Press, Amazon, and of course her website, kellyyang.com. Once again, that's kellyyang.com. She's also available through the former Twitter, now X, Instagram, and YouTube under Kelly Yang Author. Until next time, seek peace and spread lots of love. I'm Maggie Linton.